Well, thank you for staying with us. As Nigeria continues to address the challenges facing the economy, attention to the private sector is key to creating sustainable solutions and a thriving economy. This is because, as a catalyst for growth, the private sector is responsible for over 80% of annual investment, with the potential to create jobs and enhance productivity. According to experts, the government must continue to address the systemic issues to create a more thriving environment for the private sector if it must unlock its full potentials. I introduced him earlier. He is the president of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, that's Dr. Ifeanyi Okoye. He is a pharmacist with an MSc and PhD in pharmaceutical technology and industrial pharmacy, best graduating student in the class, as well as the alumnus of the prestigious Harvard Business School, Boston, United States of America. Good afternoon. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be with you.
Yes, I think I need to start by congratulating you as the president of NECA. Yes, let's start with that. And let me ask you, at this time where there are lots of challenges surrounding Nigeria's economy, investment, interest rates, we can go on and on. We just resolved the minimum wage impasse. Tell us your roadmap first for NECA before we go into other issues.
I mean, something has to happen. I mean, there must be a time, there must be a difficult time, there must be an interesting time that any business will get into. Currently, we're in a little business time, difficult time, and we believe it will come to pass. And the way it's going is so we're almost getting to the end. What do we need in this condition? Just to keep ourselves together, focus on whatever we are doing, avoid unnecessary distractions in any form. And that is what I believe a businessman who is seriously involved in this economy has to do. Thank you very much.
Yes, you would agree with me that the private sector has been hit one way or the other by some of these policies. At the same time, many will say that is the way to go. So let's be specific with some of these policies, like the removal of fuel subsidy and, of course, the liberalization of the foreign exchange market. How has it affected the private sector specifically?
We all know in this country that fuel subsidy must be removed, and it has been removed. And what is happening now is actually expected. It won't be easy for us for now. It has to calm down and then at least be manageable. For the fact that we've been battling, I mean, we've been enjoying what we are not supposed to be enjoying, which has led us into different forms of corruption. I mean, for now, we should be able to appreciate the little difficulties we are going through. It's not been good for everybody, at least any businessman, for the fact that the fuel subsidy has been removed. Things started going up. People started buying fuel close to the rate they're supposed to be buying it, not even fully correct. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you check other parts of the world, fuel generally are sold at very, very expensive prices compared to what we buy fuel in Nigeria. So actually, we are not enjoying it. Businessmen are not enjoying it, but it's expected. Things have to get worse or bad before we start getting ourselves together. So the most important thing is that we businessmen, we in the private sector are actually suffering the fuel subsidy removal. But I will keep saying, and I'll keep repeating, that whatever is happening is expected. I hope you understand what I mean.
Yes, I do. I do, and I like it that it's coming from the private sector, letting Nigerians understand that, yes, we need to get to this point before it gets better. Now, let's say the pharmaceutical space where you operate. There's been lots of interventions before now, I remember, for the pharmaceutical space, and we see that in recent times, there's a bit of hike in prices. Of course, it's a general thing that has to do, it's a global issue though. So what would you say, or what would you make of the pharmaceutical sector at the moment? The interventions you've gotten, how have they helped to address some of the challenges you face in that industry?
And the pharmaceutical sector is a very sensitive sector of the economy because it has to do with life. And I tell you that currently 98% of raw materials used in this country are imported. And the manufacturers, of course, will have no alternative than to suffer through all the things involved. I mean, you asked about the effect of the forex liberalization in businesses. I mean, the pharmaceutical sector is one of the core areas that is affected because now people have to buy forex at a higher rate. Of course, by the time you bring in the raw materials, definitely the products are expected to be far more expensive. However, I must commend the government because they seem to be, trying to understand what the pharmaceutical sector is crying about. Recently, duty payment on raw materials and machineries for pharmaceutical manufacturing has been removed. And I will pray that it's stressed correctly and should be implemented. Because you know one of the problems we have in this country is that a policy will be brought out, but the implementation becomes a problem. So the government should ensure that this policy is well implemented to the last, so that anybody in the pharmaceutical manufacturing sector of the economy should be able to bring in the raw materials, bring in machinery without paying duty as they have already stated. And then one thing must be observed. You know, one serious issue we have in this country is about fake drugs. And I tell you, I've been in the pharmaceutical sector for over 30 years. And fake drugs are majorly brought into this country through importation of finished goods. And we believe that the government will not be pushed to get into maybe trying to favor the imported products by maybe going to also liberalize the importation of these products, because this is where Nigeria has this problem. With the attitude of NAFDAC, the position of NAFDAC in this country, the control is there. And the manufacturing sector of the pharmaceutical business manufacturers is well protected and moving perfectly well. So these are the major issues. We are having problems with all that is happening. However, we are also, happy that the government understands and that they've started putting hands into it. We're also looking forward to the government trying to at least look into funding of the pharmaceutical sector, because it's also an aspect that we make it at least a little bit better and possibly bring down the prices of pharmaceutical products. Thank you very much.
President, let me follow up by asking you that how well are we also thinking about backward integration? 90% of raw materials being imported, to me, is scary. Are we looking towards backward integration generally in our manufacturing industry?
Oh, perfect. Especially in the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry. There is a system going on now where the NAFDAC and even the government are planning for most manufacturers to start thinking of manufacturing some of their raw materials locally. So it's actions are actually moving towards it. We're not just keeping quiet. We know the implications. We know that we are not enjoying it, and we know that the people are suffering. So the aspect of we getting into manufacturing of raw materials is actually currently being handled by both the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and, of course, the government. So that is being taken very well care of.
Okay, now government and Labour finally agreed to 70,000 naira minimum wage, and I know that NECA was part of this discussion. Your Director General, I'm sure, top agencies were part of this committee, this tripartite committee that met, and and the position of the private sector was considering the reality on ground and the challenges that they also face for them to be able to pay this amount. How would you react to issues around government, labor, and minimum wage issues as it affects the private sector?
first and foremost, I will congratulate the labor sector for accepting this 70,000 and cooperating with the government to get it at least a fact that the people will be happy with. You see, it's not easy for the private sector to pay this amount, but it's good you know that most of the private sectors were even paying far more than this before this time. But what we are now saying is we're talking about a minimum wage. You see, we in Nigeria tend to misunderstand what minimum wage is. We're not talking about living wage. We're talking about minimum wage, starting point, where people start their life. Not when people are already getting married. By the time you get married, you have children, you have a car, you do that, do this. You must have escaped the minimum wage. So for the government to pay the minimum wage at 70,000 is perfect for the Nigerian employers. We are very glad with that. We had agreed with them on 62, but with the 70, we are very much okay with that. And we are very happy that Labour has also agreed with the government. The most important thing is for the federal government to ensure that the states pay this minimum wage, because this might be another problem. We've already been made to understand that Labour has decided to go to states that will refuse to pay and get it enforced. I won't blame them for that. I think the most important thing now is that the state governments should strategize and ensure they arrange themselves and be ready to pay the 70,000. So the 70,000, though much, but the organized private sector will be ready or are already set to cooperate with the government to get it implemented and make it work.
It's getting more interesting now with the private sector and all of this. But let's now look at support now at this time and particular interventions that you think the private sector would need. Yes, you've highlighted some as we started this conversation, but specifically to grow the private sector, as who, of course, they create these jobs and they can support the government. What more would you want the federal government to look at this time before we wrap up this conversation?
I think the government should understand the steps they've already taken, removing the fuel subsidy and then liberalizing the forex. That then means a lot of problems for a lot of businesses in the country. So I think the government should think about looking into taxation. First and foremost, they should ensure they stop multiple taxation, which is one of the problems most private businesses encounter in this country. You are moving from here from Enugu to Onitsha. You find yourself paying almost at 10 different spots, paying virtually the same thing at each spot. But these are things that the federal government should be able to sit with the state government and agree on specific amount that should be paid. If paid in Enugu, will be acceptable at Ondo, will be acceptable at Lagos. This is very important. So these taxations must be made to be comfortable to the people. And then, of course, looking for now, the federal government should look into, if possible, a little period of tax, at least tax, let me say tax-free period for some business, no, not all. Because taxation, if anybody that does business is bound, and I'm sure is ready, as far as we in the private sector are concerned, we are ready, we don't have any problems paying taxes. But because of all these policies, the issue of subsidy removal, the issue of forex and liberalization, we expect the government to look into taxation and be able to make it a little bit comfortable for private sector. Then on the issue of intervention, I mean, it's been on. I know that there was a time the federal government, through the CBN, intervened on the with a special fund to the pharmaceutical sector. And I will tell you, the people in Nigeria enjoy this intervention because a lot of products have started being manufactured in this country. And I know Nigerians are enjoying it. So this sort of intervention could be extended to other sectors. I know the agri sector, the pharmaceutical sector, some of these sectors are enjoying it, but it can be expanded to other sectors at this time, because with what is happening, most businesses will need to readjust. So intervention funds can be created for some other sectors and more for the sectors that maybe have had but not had enough to be able to exist. So I think a little touch to some of these things. And then, most importantly, the infrastructures. I mean, if I am manufacturing down here and I might not be able to move it more than a kilometer due to bad roads or due to insecurity, definitely what I'm doing is rubbish. So there must be a look into simple, different infrastructures. Electricity, of course. Now, in recent times, Nigerian businesses don't compete with our colleagues in West African sub-region. I mean, we are already noticing business migrating out of Nigeria to some of these regions, some going back to their countries completely, maybe because of lack of electricity. Are you talking about, like I said, insecurity, bad roads, and in addition, this fund intervention within some of these, with some of the funds that could be done, and then a good look into taxation. Thank you very much.
All right, finally now, before I let you go, what will be your reaction regards to investments? We all want investments. And looking at a fallout from what's happening at the moment, Dangote refinery, and there's been this back and forth. How do you see all of this shaping investments moving on?
Investments, I mean, there will be no economic growth without investments, whether foreign direct investments or investments within the country. And the story that is happening around Dangote is something that should not be discussed in this country. It's actually not acceptable. I mean, anybody that has power to get in any form of business correctly without disturbing any other business should be allowed to operate. In fact, regulations should be looked into to ensure that that business is not being distracted unnecessarily. Because I'll tell you something, most of Nigerians that are working within the government system, some of them have not even done any business. They don't even know what it means to do business. They don't even know what a businessman goes through. You see them sitting on their tables, issuing orders, telling somebody, okay, you must take this quantity of crude oil within this time, or you leaving somebody to start importing crude oil when we know that we have enough crude oil in Nigeria. I mean, it's embarrassing. Whatever somebody doing any business is doing that is good, that is not wrong, that is not criminal, that business should be allowed to survive. So that is one thing we must look into, our people sitting in the offices in the name of government. And generally, if we stabilize this economy, if we're able to manage this issue of fuel subsidy removal, if we're able to manage this issue of forest liberalization, I assure you, we have a lot of foreign direct investment. I mean, the fuel subsidy removal is a system of even allowing people to get into the competition as far as fuel business is concerned. And it's good for investment. And of course, foreign exchange liberalization is another beautiful thing. It's a very, very good strategy that will make foreigners to come into this country, knowing that they are not coming in when the dollar, somebody is getting dollar at 2 naira, while other person is getting it at 5 naira. I mean, it's not acceptable.
Yeah.
So I think the way it's going, what we need is a little more time, allow the government a little more time to stabilize what very good things they've started. And I believe investment will definitely grow both local and foreign.
Dr. Ifeanyi Okoye is the president of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association. I must thank you so much. It's been really nice talking to you. Hope to have you on the program anytime again soon. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.